Welcome to our channel. Before starting, please like and subscribe for more stories. The FBI, officially known as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, has long stood as a pillar of U.S. national security. Founded in 1908, the agency plays a critical role in counterintelligence, combating terrorism, and protecting against espionage from foreign adversaries. While the FBI has faced numerous challenges over its history, its darkest moment occurred in the late 20th century when one of its own agents, Robert Hanssen, committed what is widely regarded as the worst intelligence disaster in FBI history. For over 2 decades, Hanssen betrayed the United States by selling classified information to the Soviet Union and later to Russia. His treachery was not just an isolated act of espionage. It caused a cascade of consequences that compromised sensitive operations, endangered the lives of agents and informants, and left an indelible stain on the FBI's reputation. This catastrophic breach raised serious questions about internal security measures, the vulnerabilities of even the most trusted institutions, and the motivations that drive individuals to betray their country. The landscape of espionage in the late 20th century. To understand the magnitude of Hanssen's betrayal, it is essential to consider the broader context of U.S. intelligence operations during the Cold War. The period from the 1940s through the late 1980s was defined by intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both nations invested heavily in espionage to gain strategic advantages, often relying on double agents, covert operations, and advanced surveillance technology to outmaneuver each other. By the 1970s and 1980s, the FBI was tasked with protecting the U.S. against foreign intelligence operations on domestic soil. This included identifying and neutralizing Soviet spies operating within the country. The CIA focused on international operations, while the FBI handled counterintelligence within U.S. borders. This division of labor made the FBI's role in counterespionage vital to national security. The agency was responsible for monitoring Soviet embassies, intercepting communications, and recruiting double agents to infiltrate foreign networks. However, despite its successes, the FBI was far from invulnerable. The agency's internal security measures, designed to detect insider threats, were not as robust as they needed to be. This weakness created an opportunity for individuals like Hanssen to exploit their positions for personal gain. Hanssen's actions would ultimately highlight the devastating consequences of these vulnerabilities. The genesis of a catastrophic betrayal. Robert Hanssen's journey into espionage began in the late 1970s. At the time, he was an up-and-coming FBI agent with a promising career in counterintelligence. However, beneath his outward professionalism lay a complex web of personal insecurities, financial struggles, and a desire for power and recognition. These factors set the stage for what would become the most damaging act of betrayal in FBI history. In 1979, Hanssen made the fateful decision to approach the GRU, the Soviet Union's military intelligence agency, offering to sell classified information. Unlike some spies who were motivated by ideological convictions, Hanssen's primary motivations were financial gain and personal gratification. He saw espionage as a way to solve his financial problems while simultaneously proving his intellectual superiority over his peers and superiors. Hanssen's initial actions as a spy were calculated and methodical. He avoided direct contact with Soviet operatives, instead opting for dead drops, a covert method of exchanging information by leaving it in a concealed location. By using coded messages and aliases, he minimized his risk of exposure. This cautious approach allowed him to continue his espionage activities undetected for years, even as he rose through the ranks of the FBI. The scope of the espionage. The scale of Hanssen's betrayal is staggering. Over the course of 22 years, he leaked some of the FBI's most sensitive secrets to the Soviets and later the Russians. Among the information he provided were the names of double agents working for the United States within Soviet intelligence. These revelations led to the arrest and execution of several operatives, effectively dismantling U.S. intelligence efforts in critical areas. Hanssen also disclosed details about advanced surveillance technologies, including the FBI's methods for intercepting Soviet communications. This information allowed the Soviets to develop countermeasures, severely limiting the FBI's ability to monitor their activities. In addition, Hanssen provided the Soviets with national security strategies, including plans related to nuclear defense and military readiness, giving them a significant advantage during a time of heightened geopolitical tension. Consequences for the FBI and national security. The fallout from Hanssen's espionage extended far beyond the immediate loss of information. His actions compromised the FBI's ability to conduct counterintelligence operations, forcing the agency to rebuild its networks and reassess its methods. The damage to the FBI's credibility was profound, eroding trust within the agency and among its partners in the intelligence community. One of the most devastating aspects of Hanssen's betrayal was the psychological toll it took on the FBI's agents and leadership. The realization that one of their own had betrayed them so thoroughly created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. It also raised serious concerns about the FBI's internal security protocols, prompting calls for widespread reforms to prevent similar breaches in the future. The national security implications of Hansen's espionage were equally severe. By providing the Soviets with a clear picture of U.S. intelligence capabilities, he weakened America's ability to defend itself against foreign adversaries. The information he leaked remained valuable even after the end of the Cold War, as it gave Russia insight into the FBI's methods and priorities. Legacy of the intelligence disaster. Today, the Robert Hanssen case stands as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in even the most secure institutions. It highlights the importance of vigilance, the dangers of complacency, and the devastating consequences of unchecked insider threats. The FBI has since implemented stricter security measures, including enhanced background checks, increased monitoring of employees, and improved protocols for handling classified information. These changes were driven by the lessons learned from the Hanssen case. While the FBI has recovered from the immediate damage caused by Hansen's betrayal, the scars of this intelligence disaster remain. It serves as a cautionary tale for intelligence agencies around the world, emphasizing the need for constant vigilance and the importance of trust and accountability within their ranks. Robert Philip Hanssen, the man at the center of the worst intelligence disaster in FBI history, lived a life of stark contrasts. Outwardly, he was a devoted husband, father, and accomplished FBI agent. But behind this facade was a man who betrayed his country and colleagues in one of the most damaging acts of espionage ever recorded. Understanding Hansen's background, career, and personal struggles provides insight into how he became a double agent for the Soviet Union and later Russia, ultimately causing untold damage to U.S. national security. 1. Early life and influences. Robert Hanssen was born on April 18, 1944, in Chicago, Illinois, to a middle-class family. His father, Howard Hanssen, was a police officer who reportedly had a domineering and critical personality. Accounts from Hansen's early life suggest that his father's harsh treatment deeply affected him, fostering feelings of inadequacy and resentment that would follow him into adulthood. Academic journey. Hanssen excelled academically, particularly in science and mathematics. He graduated from Knox College in Illinois with a degree in chemistry and later earned an MBA from Northwestern University. While pursuing his education, Hanssen converted to Roman Catholicism and became deeply religious, a characteristic that would later be a defining feature of his public persona. Career beginnings. Before joining the FBI, Hanssen briefly worked for the Chicago Police Department, where he served in the department's intelligence unit. This role gave him his first exposure to surveillance and counterintelligence techniques. His time as a police officer was short-lived, as he soon sought a more prestigious career in federal law enforcement. 2. Entry into the FBI. Hanssen joined the FBI in 1976, marking the beginning of a promising career in counterintelligence. He was initially assigned to the FBI field office in Gary, Indiana, where he worked on white-collar crime cases. However, his technical expertise and analytical skills quickly set him apart, leading to his transfer to Washington, D.C. Rising through the ranks. In the nation's capital, Hanssen's career took a turn toward counterintelligence, the area in which he would ultimately betray the agency. He was entrusted with highly sensitive assignments, including cases involving Soviet espionage. Over the years, Hanssen gained access to classified information that included details about surveillance techniques, counterintelligence strategies, and the identities of American assets operating within the Soviet Union. Professional accomplishments. Hanssen's colleagues described him as intelligent, methodical, and detail-oriented. He earned a reputation for his strong work ethic and technical proficiency, particularly in the field of computer technology and encryption. These skills earned him assignments that required a high level of trust, giving him access to some of the FBI's most sensitive operations. The perception of integrity. Hanssen cultivated an image of moral integrity, rooted in his devout Catholic faith and conservative values. He was an active member of Opus Dei, a Catholic organization, and often spoke about the importance of faith and family. This carefully maintained facade made him an unlikely suspect when the FBI later began searching for the mole within their ranks. 3. Personal life and struggles. While Hanssen appeared to lead a stable and successful life, his personal struggles and contradictions played a significant role in his decision to commit espionage. Family life. Hanssen married Bonnie Walk in 1968, and the couple had 6 children. Bonnie, a devout Catholic, shared his religious beliefs and supported his career. Despite his outward devotion to his family, Hanssen's espionage activities created a double life that ultimately placed his loved ones in jeopardy. Financial challenges. Although Hanssen earned a comfortable salary as an FBI agent, he often faced financial difficulties, particularly as his family grew. These struggles fueled his desire for additional income, which he sought through espionage. The payments he received from the Soviets, amounting to over $1.4 million in cash, diamonds, and bank deposits, allowed him to maintain a modest lifestyle while secretly amassing wealth. Psychological complexity. Hansen's decision to spy was not solely motivated by money. He reportedly struggled with feelings of inadequacy and a desire to outsmart those around him, particularly his colleagues in the FBI. His betrayal was also a form of rebellion against the authority figures he felt had belittled him throughout his life, from his father to his FBI superiors. The dual life of a spy. Hansen's ability to live a double life for over 2 decades is one of the most striking aspects of his story. He skillfully balanced his roles as a devoted family man, dedicated FBI agent, and covert operative for foreign intelligence agencies. Espionage begins. Hansen's career as a spy began in 1979 when he approached the GRU, the Soviet Military Intelligence Agency, and offered to sell classified information. His first act of betrayal included revealing the identities of Soviet double agents working for the United States, several of whom were later executed. Despite the risks, Hansen continued to spy intermittently over the next 2 decades, using elaborate methods to avoid detection. Secrecy and caution. Hansen avoided direct contact with Soviet and later Russian handlers, instead relying on dead drops, where he would leave packages of classified information in predetermined locations. He communicated through coded messages and used aliases to conceal his identity. His paranoia about being caught drove him to impose strict security measures on his dealings, ensuring that his identity remained a mystery to his handlers. Maintaining the illusion. To his colleagues, Hansen appeared to be a committed and loyal FBI agent. He often criticized defectors and spies, portraying himself as a staunch defender of national security. His ability to maintain this illusion was a key factor in his success as a spy, as it prevented suspicion from falling on him even as the FBI began investigating a mole within its ranks. 5. A complex and contradictory figure. Robert Hansen's life is a study in contradictions. On the surface, he was a man of faith, family, and duty. Yet, his actions revealed a darker side driven by greed, insecurity, and betrayal. Moral compartmentalization. Hansen rationalized his actions by compartmentalizing his life. He convinced himself that his espionage activities were unrelated to his moral and religious beliefs, allowing him to reconcile his faith with his betrayal. His ability to compartmentalize also extended to his personal relationships, as he kept his wife and children completely in the dark about his double life. Legacy of deception. Hansen's dual identity ultimately caused immense harm to the people and institutions he professed to care about. His family, colleagues, and country paid the price for his actions, which left a lasting scar on the FBI and U.S. intelligence. Robert Hansen's path into espionage was neither a spur-of-the-moment decision nor an act of desperation. It was a calculated betrayal driven by his personal desires for financial gain, intellectual superiority, and a sense of power over those around him. His decision to approach the Soviet Union and sell secrets was the beginning of a 2-decade-long career of espionage that would go on to compromise some of the United States' most critical intelligence operations. 1. The beginning of espionage, 1979. Hansen's espionage career officially began in 1979, just 3 years after he joined the FBI. Unlike other spies who were recruited by foreign agents, Hansen initiated contact with the Soviet GRU, main intelligence directorate, entirely on his own. Hansen made the first move by writing an anonymous letter to the Soviet Military Intelligence Agency, offering to sell classified U.S. government information. This unsolicited approach demonstrated his willingness to betray his country and his confidence in being able to evade detection. In his initial communication, Hansen provided the Soviets with highly sensitive information, including the identities of 3 Soviet double agents working for the United States. These individuals were subsequently arrested, and at least 2 of them were executed. This act alone marked Hansen as a highly valuable asset for the Soviets. Motivations for espionage. Hansen's motivations were complex. Financial gain was a significant factor, as he struggled to support his growing family and maintain their lifestyle. However, his actions were also fueled by a sense of superiority. Hansen viewed himself as more intelligent than his colleagues and superiors, and his espionage activities provided him with a way to validate this belief. He relished the idea of outsmarting both the FBI and the Soviet Union, seeing himself as a master manipulator. Ideology played little to no role in his betrayal. Unlike some spies who defected due to political convictions, Hansen's motivations were deeply personal and self-serving. 2. The methods of espionage. Hansen's success as a spy can largely be attributed to his meticulous planning and cautious approach. He understood the risks involved and took extreme measures to protect his identity and avoid detection. Use of dead drops. Hansen avoided direct contact with Soviet operatives, instead relying on dead drops, a covert method of exchanging information. He would leave packages of classified materials in predetermined locations, such as beneath bridges, inside plastic bags, or hidden in park locations. In return, the Soviets would leave cash payments or other rewards in separate dead drop locations. This indirect method minimized the risk of face-to-face meetings and allowed Hansen to remain anonymous. Communication through codes. Hansen and his Soviet handlers communicated using coded messages. He employed aliases such as Ramon Ib, ensuring that his real identity was never revealed to the Soviets. He also used encrypted notes and agreed-upon phrases to confirm the locations of dead drops and the delivery of payments. These layers of security added to the complexity of his espionage network. Stealth and caution. Hansen was highly paranoid about being caught. He often imposed strict rules on his Soviet handlers, insisting on minimal communication and refusing to engage in risky activities. This cautious approach allowed him to continue his espionage activities undetected for over 2 decades, even as the FBI and CIA became increasingly suspicious of a mole within their ranks. 3. The information he sold. Hansen's betrayal involved leaking some of the most sensitive and damaging intelligence ever compromised in U.S. history. The breadth of the information he provided to the Soviets is staggering. One of Hansen's earliest and most damaging acts was revealing the identities of double agents working for the United States within the Soviet intelligence network. These revelations led to the capture and execution of several agents, devastating U.S. counterintelligence efforts in the Soviet Union. This betrayal effectively dismantled years of intelligence-gathering work and created a sense of fear and mistrust among American assets abroad. Hansen provided the Soviets with detailed information about FBI and CIA surveillance techniques, including how the United States monitored Soviet communications and tracked operatives. He disclosed the existence of a secret FBI-built tunnel beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., which was used for eavesdropping. This revelation rendered the operation useless, costing millions of dollars in wasted efforts. Hansen leaked critical details about U.S. nuclear defense strategies, military readiness, and contingency plans. This information gave the Soviets a significant advantage during a period of heightened geopolitical tension, particularly during the final years of the Cold War. Ongoing operations. Hansen's espionage disrupted ongoing counterintelligence operations, forcing the FBI and CIA to reassess their strategies and rebuild networks. The long-term impact of these breaches cannot be overstated, as they left the United States vulnerable to further espionage and infiltration. 4. The evolution of Hansen's espionage. Hansen's activities as a spy were not continuous. Over the years, he alternated between periods of active espionage and dormancy, depending on his circumstances and level of risk. After his initial acts of betrayal in the late 1970s, Hansen ceased contact with the Soviets for a period of time, fearing that his activities might attract suspicion. He resumed his espionage in the mid-1980s, this time working with the KGB, the Soviet Union's primary intelligence agency. Transition to the post-Soviet era. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Hansen continued his espionage activities for Russia, now under the control of its successor intelligence agency, the SVR. The end of the Cold War did little to deter Hansen, as he believed his skills and access remained valuable to Russia's intelligence community. The financial rewards. Over the course of his espionage career, Hansen received over $1.4 million in cash, diamonds, and bank deposits from his handlers. Despite this wealth, he maintained a modest lifestyle to avoid raising suspicion among his colleagues and family. 5. The escalation of betrayal. As Hansen's espionage career progressed, the scope and impact of his betrayal grew exponentially. By the late 1990s, he had caused irreparable damage to U.S. intelligence operations, endangering the lives of countless individuals and compromising national security on an unprecedented scale. Unparalleled damage. The information Hansen provided to the Soviets and Russians over 2 decades made him one of the most valuable and destructive spies in history. His betrayal not only compromised specific operations, but also undermined the trust and effectiveness of the FBI and CIA, forcing these agencies to overhaul their counterintelligence practices. A career of deception. Throughout his career, Hansen meticulously balanced his roles as an FBI agent and a spy. To fully understand the gravity of Robert Hansen's espionage activities, it is essential to place his actions within the broader geopolitical landscape of the Cold War and its immediate aftermath. The Cold War, 1947 to 1991, was a period of intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, where espionage played a crucial role in the struggle for global dominance. Hansen's betrayal came during a critical phase of this conflict, and his actions significantly impacted the balance of power between the two superpowers. 1. The importance of espionage in the Cold War. Espionage was a defining feature of the Cold War, as both the United States and the Soviet Union relied heavily on intelligence to outmaneuver each other politically, militarily, and economically. The role of intelligence agencies. In the United States, agencies like the FBI and CIA were tasked with gathering intelligence, countering Soviet espionage, and protecting national security. The FBI focused on domestic counterintelligence, while the CIA operated internationally. In the Soviet Union, organizations like the KGB and GRU carried out covert operations, recruited spies, and targeted U.S. military and political institutions to gain strategic advantages. The stakes of the espionage game. The Cold War was not fought on conventional battlefields, but in shadows, where spies and double agents carried out their missions. Information was the most valuable weapon, and intelligence agencies sought to uncover their adversaries' secrets while protecting their own. A single leak of classified information could compromise an entire operation, endanger lives, and shift the balance of power. The stakes were extraordinarily high, and both sides were willing to take significant risks to achieve their objectives. Key areas of focus. Nuclear strategy. One of the central concerns during the Cold War was the nuclear arms race. Both superpowers sought to understand their adversaries' capabilities and strategies, making this a key area of focus for espionage. Counterintelligence. Identifying and neutralizing spies within one's own ranks was a critical component of maintaining security. This was particularly challenging, as moles like Hansen could operate undetected for years. Hansen's unique position in the Cold War. As an FBI counterintelligence agent, Robert Hansen occupied a position of immense trust and responsibility. His role gave him access to precisely the kind of information the Soviet Union needed to gain an edge over the United States. Access to sensitive information. Hansen's assignments included monitoring Soviet espionage activities in the United States, tracking double agents, and managing counterintelligence operations. This level of access allowed Hansen to provide the Soviets with information that was not only highly classified but also critical to U.S. national security. His betrayals undermined some of the FBI's most important efforts to counter Soviet espionage. Insider knowledge of FBI operations. Hansen's deep understanding of the FBI's methods and priorities made him an extraordinarily valuable asset for the Soviet Union. He knew what the FBI was watching, how they conducted surveillance, and which operations were active. This insider knowledge allowed the Soviets to evade detection, protect their own assets, and even exploit FBI operations to their advantage. Timing of espionage. Hansen's espionage began during a period of heightened tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union, when every piece of intelligence had the potential to shape the outcome of the Cold War. Even after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Hansen continued to spy for Russia, highlighting the enduring nature of his betrayal and the long-term impact of his actions. 3. The impact of Hansen's betrayal during the Cold War. Hansen's espionage activities caused significant damage to the United States during a time when maintaining a strategic advantage over the Soviet Union was paramount. Compromised double agents. One of Hansen's first acts of betrayal was revealing the identities of double agents working for the United States within the Soviet intelligence network. These individuals were instrumental in providing the U.S. with insights into Soviet operations. The loss of these assets not only disrupted intelligence gathering efforts, but also resulted in their arrests and executions, sending shockwaves through the U.S. intelligence community. Exposure of surveillance techniques. Hansen leaked details about the FBI's surveillance capabilities, including the use of advanced listening devices and covert monitoring of Soviet activities. This information allowed the Soviets to identify and neutralize surveillance operations, effectively blinding the FBI to certain activities and limiting their ability to gather intelligence. Nuclear defense compromises. Hansen provided the Soviets with classified information about U.S. nuclear defense strategies, missile deployments, and contingency plans. This gave the Soviet Union a clearer understanding of American military capabilities and reduced the United States' strategic advantage. These leaks heightened the risks of miscalculation during critical moments of the Cold War, as the Soviets gained a clearer picture of U.S. intentions. For espionage after the Cold War. While the Cold War officially ended in 1991 with collapse of the Soviet Union, Hansen's espionage continued, now serving the interests of Russia. His actions during this period underscore the ongoing nature of intelligence conflicts, even in the absence of direct geopolitical rivalry. Transition to Russia. Following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Hansen began working for Russia's successor intelligence agency, the SVR. Although the ideological stakes of the Cold War had diminished, Russia remained a major intelligence adversary of the United States. Hansen's espionage during this period focused on providing Russia with insights into U.S. counterintelligence operations, enabling them to adapt and refine their strategies. Continuing damage to U.S. intelligence. Even after the Cold War, the information Hansen leaked continued to have long-term consequences. It affected ongoing operations, compromised the security of American agents abroad, and strained relationships between the FBI and other intelligence agencies. His betrayal highlighted the evolving nature of espionage, where economic, technological, and geopolitical factors replaced ideological conflict as the primary drivers of intelligence operations. 5. A lasting legacy of espionage. Hansen's actions left an indelible mark on the FBI and the broader intelligence community, serving as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for reform. Lessons learned from the Cold War. The Hansen case underscores the vulnerabilities inherent in intelligence agencies, particularly when it comes to insider threats. The Cold War may have ended, but the risks associated with espionage remain as significant as ever. The need for stronger internal security measures and more robust vetting processes became a central focus for the FBI in the aftermath of Hansen's capture. The consequences of Robert Hansen's espionage were catastrophic, earning him the title of one of the most damaging spies in U.S. history. Over 2 decades, Hansen leaked highly sensitive information to the Soviet Union and later Russia, crippling U.S. intelligence operations and jeopardizing national security. The extent of the damage caused by his actions is unparalleled, affecting not only the FBI, but also the CIA, the military, and international relationships. His betrayal compromised lives, technology, and strategies that were pivotal to U.S. defense efforts. 1. The betrayal of double agents. One of Hansen's most devastating acts was exposing the identities of double agents who were secretly working for the United States within the Soviet intelligence network. Double agents' identities revealed. Hansen provided the Soviets with the names of key individuals who were feeding critical information to U.S. intelligence agencies. Among the most notable were Dmitry Polyakov, a highly valuable asset in the GRU, Soviet military intelligence, and Alexei Kulak, a KGB official turned U.S. informant. The Soviets acted swiftly on this information. Several double agents were arrested, interrogated, and executed, including Polyakov, whose betrayal was a severe blow to U.S. intelligence efforts. Collapse of U.S. intelligence networks. The exposure of these double agents not only disrupted intelligence gathering efforts, but also destroyed carefully cultivated trust between American operatives and their sources. This loss forced the FBI and CIA to reevaluate their methods and rebuild networks from scratch, a process that took years and hindered the U.S.'s ability to counter Soviet operations effectively. Human costs. The executions of U.S. informants were not just strategic losses. They also highlighted the human toll of Hansen's betrayal. These individuals risked their lives to provide the United States with critical intelligence, only to be betrayed by someone within the very agency sworn to protect them. 2. Compromise of national security operations. Hansen's espionage extended beyond the betrayal of double agents. He leaked highly classified information that jeopardized the integrity of U.S. national security operations. Surveillance techniques and capabilities. Hansen revealed the details of advanced surveillance systems used by the FBI and CIA to monitor Soviet activities. One of the most significant disclosures was the existence of a secret tunnel built by the FBI beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., designed for eavesdropping on Soviet communications. This operation, which cost millions of dollars and years of effort, was rendered useless after Hansen's leak. The Soviets discovered the tunnel and took measures to block surveillance, depriving the United States of a critical intelligence tool. Nuclear defense secrets. Hansen leaked information about U.S. nuclear defense strategies, including details about missile deployments, command and control systems, and contingency plans. These leaks gave the Soviets a clearer understanding of America's nuclear capabilities, reducing the U.S.'s strategic advantage and increasing the risk of miscalculation during moments of heightened tension. Counterintelligence operations. Hansen compromised ongoing FBI and CIA counterintelligence operations, exposing the identities of American operatives and their tactics. This forced U.S. intelligence agencies to abandon critical missions and develop new methods, creating significant delays and resource strains. 3. Long-term impacts on U.S. intelligence. The damage caused by Hansen's betrayal did not end with his capture. The long-term effects of his actions continue to influence the way U.S. intelligence agencies operate. Loss of credibility. Hansen's actions damaged the FBI's reputation, both domestically and internationally. Allies and partner intelligence agencies questioned the FBI's ability to safeguard classified information, leading to strained relationships and reduced cooperation. Internally, trust within the FBI was eroded. The realization that one of their own had betrayed the agency created a culture of suspicion and paranoia, which took years to address. Strained FBI-CIA relations. The fallout from Hansen's espionage strained the relationship between the FBI and the CIA, as both agencies grappled with the consequences of his leaks. The CIA, in particular, was deeply affected by the loss of assets and the exposure of operations that had taken years to develop. This tension highlighted the need for greater collaboration and communication between U.S. intelligence agencies to prevent future breaches. Financial and operational costs. Rebuilding the networks and operations compromised by Hansen's betrayal required significant financial and human resources. The FBI and CIA had to invest heavily in new technologies, security measures, and personnel training to recover from the damage and prevent similar breaches in the future. 4 lessons learned and reforms. In the wake of Hansen's betrayal, the FBI and other U.S. intelligence agencies implemented significant reforms to address the vulnerabilities exposed by his actions. Enhanced internal security measures. The FBI introduced stricter background checks, regular security clearances, and increased monitoring of employees with access to classified information. New policies were established to detect insider threats, including the use of behavior analysis, financial monitoring, and automated systems to track suspicious activities. Improved counterintelligence practices. The Hansen case underscored the importance of robust counterintelligence practices to identify and neutralize internal threats. Intelligence agencies began conducting regular audits of classified information to ensure accountability and reduce the risk of leaks. Cultural changes. The FBI worked to rebuild trust within its ranks by fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. This included providing better support for employees and encouraging open communication to address concerns and grievances. Training programs were revamped to emphasize the importance of ethical conduct, loyalty, and the consequences of espionage. 5. The broader implications of espionage. The Hansen case serves as a sobering reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in intelligence work and the devastating consequences of betrayal. The power of insider threats. Hansen's ability to operate undetected for over 2 decades highlights the challenges of identifying insider threats within even the most secure organizations. His case underscores the need for continuous vigilance and the importance of fostering a culture of integrity and accountability. The human cost of espionage. The lives lost, careers ruined, and operations compromised as a result of Hansen's actions demonstrate the far-reaching consequences of espionage. Beyond the immediate damage, his betrayal created ripple effects that affected the morale and effectiveness of U.S. intelligence agencies for years. Robert Hansen's relationship with the KGB, the Soviet Union's main intelligence agency, was at the heart of his long and damaging career as a spy. Unlike many other Cold War-era spies, Hansen approached the KGB of his own volition, offering his services in a calculated and cautious manner. His methods, insistence on anonymity, and strategic handling of his Soviet handlers ensured that he remained undetected for decades. Hansen's dealings with the KGB illustrate the intricate dynamics of espionage and the devastating consequences of insider betrayal. 1. Establishing contact with the KGB. Hansen's first major act of espionage was reaching out to the Soviet Union in 1979. This initial contact laid the foundation for a covert relationship that would span over 2 decades and transition from the KGB to its successor organization, the SVR, after the fall of the Soviet Union. The first move. Hansen initiated his relationship with the Soviets by sending an anonymous letter to the GRU, the Soviet Military Intelligence Agency. In this letter, he provided the identities of 3 Soviet double agents who were working for the United States. This act of betrayal not only demonstrated Hansen's willingness to sell secrets, but also established his credibility with Soviet intelligence. The information Hansen provided was so valuable that it immediately earned him the attention and trust of the Soviet leadership, setting the stage for a long-term partnership. Transition to the KGB. Shortly after his initial contact with the GRU, Hansen began working with the KGB, the Soviet Union's primary civilian intelligence agency. The KGB, recognizing the immense value of Hansen's position within the FBI, treated him as one of their most prized assets. Hansen's insider knowledge of U.S. counterintelligence operations made him an invaluable resource, particularly as tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union escalated during the Cold War. Hansen's demands. From the outset, Hansen was meticulous about protecting his identity. He insisted on remaining anonymous and communicated with the KGB through dead drops and encrypted notes. He demanded that his Soviet handlers never attempt to contact him directly, warning that any deviation from his rules would result in the termination of their relationship. This level of caution was rare among spies and contributed to Hansen's ability to operate undetected. 2. Hansen's methods of espionage. Hansen's success as a spy can largely be attributed to his careful and methodical approach. He understood the risks involved and took extraordinary measures to minimize his exposure. Use of dead drops. Hansen relied on dead drops, locations where he would leave packages of classified information for the KGB to retrieve. These locations were carefully chosen to avoid detection, often in public parks, under bridges, or in secluded areas. In return, the KGB would leave payments for Hansen at separate dead drop sites, ensuring that the two parties never had direct contact. Encrypted communication. Hansen and his handlers communicated through encrypted notes, which included instructions for dead drops, payment locations, and other logistical details. He used aliases such as Ramon and B to further conceal his identity. These precautions added layers of security to his operations, making it nearly impossible for the FBI to trace his activities back to him. Handling of classified material. Hansen would carefully select the documents he leaked, ensuring that they were highly valuable to the KGB while minimizing the risk of raising suspicion within the FBI. He often stole files late at night or during times when his office was empty, taking advantage of lax internal security measures to avoid detection. 3. What Hansen provided to the KGB. The information Hansen sold to the KGB was among the most sensitive and damaging ever leaked by an insider. His betrayal had far-reaching consequences for U.S. intelligence and national security. Identities of double agents. Hansen exposed the identities of several Soviet double agents who were secretly working for the United States. These individuals, including high-ranking officials in the KGB and GRU, were arrested and executed as a direct result of Hansen's disclosures. This act of betrayal not only disrupted U.S. intelligence operations, but also sent a chilling message to potential informants, making it more difficult for the U.S. to recruit assets in the Soviet Union. Surveillance techniques. Hansen revealed details about advanced surveillance methods used by the FBI and CIA, including the eavesdropping tunnel beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. This operation, which had taken years to develop, was rendered useless after Hansen's leak. The Soviets used this information to counter U.S. surveillance efforts, significantly hampering American intelligence gathering capabilities. Strategic defense plans. Hansen leaked classified information about U.S. nuclear defense strategies, missile systems, and military operations. This gave the Soviets critical insights into American capabilities and allowed them to adjust their own strategies accordingly. The disclosure of such sensitive information increased the risk of miscalculation during moments of geopolitical tension, potentially bringing the two superpowers closer to conflict. Or the financial rewards. Hansen's relationship with the KGB was not driven by ideology, but by financial gain. Over the course of his espionage career, he received substantial payments in exchange for the information he provided. Payments from the Soviets. Hansen was paid over $1.4 million in cash, diamond, and bank deposits by the Soviets and later the Russians. These payments were often left at dead drop locations and were carefully concealed to avoid detection. Despite his wealth, Hansen maintained a modest lifestyle to avoid raising suspicion among his colleagues and family. The cost of greed. While financial gain was a major motivator for Hansen, his greed ultimately contributed to his downfall. The large sums of money he received left a trail that eventually led investigators to uncover his activities. 5. Transition to the SVR. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Hansen's relationship with his handlers shifted to the SVR, Russia's successor intelligence agency. Continuity of espionage. Hansen continued to provide classified information to the SVR, demonstrating his commitment to espionage even after the ideological conflict of the Cold War had ended. The information he provided during this period was equally damaging, as it included details about U.S. counterintelligence operations and ongoing surveillance efforts. The end of the relationship. Hansen's espionage career came to an abrupt end in 2001 when he was arrested by the FBI. By this time, his activities had caused irreparable damage to U.S. intelligence operations and national security. 6. The lasting impact. Hansen's relationship with the KGB and SVR left a legacy of distrust, reform, and heightened vigilance within the FBI and the broader intelligence community. The story of Robert Hansen's betrayal might have remained hidden for much longer if not for a painstaking and relentless investigation by the FBI. After more than 2 decades of espionage, Hansen's double life unraveled in 2001, when his arrest exposed the full scope of his treachery. This key turning point not only ended his career of betrayal, but also revealed critical flaws in the FBI's internal security systems. The detection and capture of Hansen is a story of perseverance, chance, and the growing realization that one of the FBI's own was responsible for the most damaging intelligence disaster in its history. 1. The growing suspicion of a mole. By the early 1990s, U.S. intelligence agencies were grappling with mounting evidence that a mole within their ranks was leaking classified information to the Soviet Union and later Russia. Unexplained losses. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, several high-value double agents working for the United States within the Soviet intelligence network were exposed and executed. These losses raised alarms within the FBI and CIA, as they suggested the presence of a highly placed insider feeding information to the enemy. In addition to compromised double agents, sensitive operations and surveillance techniques were repeatedly neutralized, further fueling suspicion that a mole was undermining U.S. efforts. Failed investigations. Initially, the FBI and CIA suspected that the leaks were the work of Aldrich Ames, a CIA officer who was arrested in 1994 for spying for the Soviet Union. While Ames's capture explained some of the losses, it became clear that another mole was active, as leaks continued even after Ames was imprisoned. This realization led to the launch of an internal investigation to identify the second mole, who was responsible for the ongoing breaches. The challenges of identifying Hansen. Hansen's cautious methods made him a difficult target. Unlike Ames, who displayed erratic behavior and lived a lavish lifestyle, Hansen maintained a low profile and followed strict operational security protocols. His ability to avoid direct contact with his handlers and his insistence on anonymity ensured that even the KGB and SVR did not know his real identity. 2. The breakthrough, a key source. The turning point in the investigation came in 2000, when the FBI obtained a critical piece of evidence that would ultimately lead to Hansen's capture. A package of documents. In a stroke of luck, U.S. intelligence acquired a package of documents from a former Russian intelligence officer who had access to KGB archives. These documents, which were purchased for a significant sum of money, contained details about the activities of a mole within the FBI. Among the materials was a critical clue, a fingerprint found on an envelope used by the mole to communicate with his Soviet handlers. This fingerprint would later be matched to Hansen, providing direct evidence of his espionage. The role of surveillance. The documents also included samples of the mole's handwriting, which were compared to Hansen's records, further strengthening the case against him. Armed with this evidence, the FBI began to monitor Hansen's activities closely, placing him under surveillance to gather additional proof of his guilt. 3. Building the case against Hansen. With Hansen now identified as the primary suspect, the FBI launched a carefully coordinated operation to catch him in the act of espionage. A deliberate approach. The FBI recognized the importance of gathering irrefutable evidence against Hansen to ensure a successful prosecution. To this end, they assigned a dedicated team to monitor his movements, track his communications, and analyze his access to classified materials. Hansen was reassigned to a new position within the FBI's headquarters, where his responsibilities were limited, and his access to sensitive information was restricted. This reassignment allowed the FBI to keep a closer watch on him without arousing suspicion. Surveillance tactics. The FBI installed hidden cameras and microphones in Hansen's office to capture his activities and conversations. They also monitored his computer usage, searching for evidence of espionage-related communications. Agents followed Hansen discreetly as he moved about Washington, D.C., paying particular attention to his visits to parks and other locations where dead drops might occur. Collecting evidence. Over several months, the FBI compiled a wealth of evidence linking Hansen to the leaks. This included his unauthorized handling of classified materials, his use of encrypted notes, and his visits to dead drop sites. The final piece of the puzzle came when Hansen made a dead drop in a public park, providing investigators with direct evidence of his espionage activities. 4. The arrest. On February 18, 2001, Hansen's long career of espionage came to an abrupt end when the FBI arrested him in a dramatic operation. The Sting Operation. Hansen was arrested in Foxstone Park, Virginia, while attempting to make a dead drop for his Russian handlers. FBI agents surrounded him as he placed a package containing classified materials at a designated drop site. The arrest was swift and precise, ensuring that Hansen had no opportunity to destroy evidence or escape. The reaction. Hansen reportedly showed little emotion during his arrest, maintaining his composure even as agents confronted him with the evidence of his betrayal. His arrest sent shockwaves through the FBI and the broader intelligence community, as the extent of his espionage began to come to light. 5. The aftermath. Hansen's arrest marked the end of one of the most damaging espionage cases in U.S. history, but it also triggered a period of intense reflection and reform within the FBI. Interrogation and cooperation. Following his arrest, Hansen cooperated with investigators, providing insights into his methods and the information he leaked. In exchange for his cooperation, he avoided the death penalty and agreed to plead guilty to multiple counts of espionage. Hansen's admissions helped the FBI understand the full scope of his activities and identify the specific vulnerabilities he exploited. Life sentence. In 2002, Hansen was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was incarcerated at ADX Florence, a high-security federal prison in Colorado, where he remains to this day. Hansen's imprisonment brought a sense of closure to the case, but did little to mitigate the damage he caused. Impact on the FBI. The FBI faced intense scrutiny in the wake of Hansen's arrest, with critics questioning how he was able to operate undetected for so long. This led to significant changes in the agency's internal security measures, including enhanced background checks, increased monitoring of employees, and stricter controls on access to classified materials. 6. A turning point in U.S. intelligence. The capture of Robert Hanssen marked a critical turning point for the FBI and the broader intelligence community. The trial and sentencing of Robert Hanssen marked the culmination of a betrayal that had spanned over 2 decades and inflicted severe damage on U.S. national security. After his arrest in February 2001, Hanssen's case became a symbol of the vulnerabilities in America's intelligence apparatus and the devastating consequences of insider threats. The legal proceedings that followed not only brought Hanssen to justice, but also revealed the full extent of his espionage activities and their impact on the United States. 1. The legal charges. The U.S. government acted swiftly to bring charges against Hanssen, given the overwhelming evidence of his espionage activities. Multiple counts of espionage and conspiracy. Hanssen was charged with 15 counts of espionage and conspiracy, each carrying the potential for the death penalty. These charges stem from his sale of classified information to the Soviet Union and later Russia over a period of 22 years. The charges outline the critical nature of the information Hanssen provided to foreign intelligence agencies, including the identities of U.S. informants, surveillance methods, and national defense strategies. The severity of the crimes. Prosecutors emphasized the gravity of Hanssen's actions, describing them as treasonous and among the most damaging in U.S. intelligence history. The government argued that Hanssen's betrayal had resulted in the deaths of American operatives, compromised critical operations, and jeopardized national security. Hanssen's initial plea. During his first court appearances, Hanssen remained composed and unemotional. He initially pleaded not guilty, but the mountain of evidence against him, including documents, fingerprints, and surveillance footage, made a conviction inevitable. 2. The plea bargain. Hanssen's trial took a dramatic turn when he agreed to cooperate with investigators in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. The decision to cooperate. Facing the possibility of execution, Hanssen chose to plead guilty to all charges in return for a life sentence without parole. His cooperation was critical for the FBI and CIA, as it allowed them to assess the full extent of the damage caused by his espionage. In addition to confessing to his crimes, Hanssen provided detailed information about the specific documents and operations he had compromised. He also shared insights into his methods and motivations, offering a rare glimpse into the mindset of a mole. Avoiding the death penalty. The plea agreement was controversial, as some argued that Hanssen deserved the ultimate punishment for his betrayal. However, prosecutors defended the deal, emphasizing that his cooperation was essential for understanding and mitigating the damage he had caused. The guilty plea. On July 6, 2001, Hanssen formally pleaded guilty to all 15 counts of espionage and conspiracy. His plea marked the end of the legal proceedings and ensured that he would spend the rest of his life in prison. 3. Sentencing and imprisonment. Hanssen's sentencing was swift and decisive, reflecting the gravity of his crimes and their impact on the nation. The life sentence. On May 10, 2002, Hanssen was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge described his actions as shocking and appalling, noting the irreparable harm he had caused to U.S. intelligence and national security. The sentence ensured that Hanssen would spend the rest of his life behind bars, unable to inflict further harm on the United States. Imprisonment at ADX Florence. Hanssen was incarcerated at the ADX Florence Supermax prison in Colorado, one of the most secure facilities in the United States. Known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies, ADX Florence houses some of the nation's most dangerous criminals and terrorists. Hanssen's life in prison is one of isolation and monotony. He is confined to a small cell for 23 hours a day, with limited human interaction and no access to outside communication. Public and institutional reactions. Hanssen's sentencing brought a sense of closure to the FBI and the intelligence community, but it also underscored the need for significant reforms to prevent similar breaches in the future. The case became a defining moment in the history of U.S. intelligence, serving as both a cautionary tale and a catalyst for change. For the full scope of the damage. The trial and sentencing provided an opportunity to assess the extent of the damage caused by Hanssen's espionage, which was unparalleled in scale and impact. Lives lost. Among the most devastating consequences of Hanssen's betrayal was the exposure and execution of U.S. informants within the Soviet intelligence network. These individuals had risked their lives to provide critical information, only to be betrayed by someone within their own ranks. The loss of these assets not only disrupted intelligence gathering efforts, but also eroded trust among potential informants, making it more difficult for the U.S. to recruit operatives in the future. Compromised operations. Hanssen's leaks neutralized key counterintelligence operations and surveillance techniques, forcing the FBI and CIA to abandon or redesign critical missions. The exposure of the FBI's eavesdropping tunnel beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C. was particularly costly, as it represented years of effort and millions of dollars in resources. Long-term impact on national security. The information Hansen provided to the Soviets and Russians continued to affect U.S. intelligence efforts long after his arrest. The breaches forced the FBI and CIA to overhaul their methods, divert resources to repair the damage, and implement new security measures. The espionage activities of Robert Hansen left a deep and far-reaching impact on the U.S. intelligence community, reshaping its operations, protocols, and culture. His betrayal was not just a blow to national security. It was a seismic event that exposed vulnerabilities in the FBI and other agencies, forcing an urgent reassessment of counterintelligence practices. The ripple effects of Hansen's actions were felt across the intelligence landscape, leaving an enduring legacy of reform, introspection, and heightened vigilance. 1. Immediate damage to the intelligence community. The discovery of Hansen's espionage was a catastrophic revelation for the FBI and the broader intelligence apparatus, as the scale of his betrayal was unparalleled. Loss of trust within and between agencies. Hansen's actions created a culture of suspicion within the FBI and strained its relationships with other intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA and NSA. The realization that a senior FBI official had been leaking classified information for over 2 decades eroded confidence in the agency's ability to secure its own operations. International intelligence partners such as MI6 in the United Kingdom and Mossad in Israel also grew wary of sharing sensitive information with the FBI, fearing further breaches. Compromised operations and assets. Hansen's leaks neutralized critical counterintelligence operations and exposed U.S. informants, several of whom were executed by the Soviets as a direct result of his betrayal. The revelation of surveillance technologies, such as the secret tunnel beneath the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., rendered years of effort and investment useless, costing millions of dollars and forcing the U.S. to abandon key initiatives. Strategic disadvantages. The classified information Hansen provided to the Soviet Union and later Russia gave America's adversaries a significant advantage. From nuclear strategies to surveillance techniques, the leaks undermined U.S. efforts to maintain strategic superiority during the Cold War and its aftermath. 2. Organizational changes in the FBI. Hansen's betrayal triggered a wave of introspection and reform within the FBI, as the agency sought to address the vulnerabilities that allowed his espionage to go undetected for so long. Reevaluation of internal security. The FBI implemented stricter security measures to monitor employees with access to classified information. This included regular background checks, financial audits, and polygraph testing for individuals in sensitive positions. The agency also introduced advanced behavioral monitoring systems to detect suspicious activity, such as unexplained wealth or unusual patterns of communication. Enhanced counterintelligence programs. Recognizing the need for stronger internal safeguards, the FBI established dedicated teams to monitor potential insider threats and investigate any signs of espionage. A new emphasis was placed on educating employees about the dangers of espionage, with mandatory training programs highlighting the methods used by foreign intelligence agencies to recruit insiders. Cultural shift. Hansen's case prompted a cultural shift within the FBI, as the agency worked to rebuild trust among its employees and foster a sense of accountability. Efforts were made to create a more open environment where employees could report concerns about suspicious behavior without fear of reprisal. 3. Broader changes in the intelligence community. The fallout from Hansen's betrayal extended beyond the FBI, prompting reforms across the entire U.S. intelligence community. Interagency collaboration. The case highlighted the need for greater collaboration between the FBI, CIA, NSA, and other intelligence agencies. Joint task forces were established to share information, coordinate investigations, and prevent future breaches. The creation of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, NCSC, was a direct response to the vulnerabilities exposed by cases like Hansen's, providing a centralized platform for counterintelligence efforts. Improved vetting and monitoring. Intelligence agencies adopted stricter vetting procedures for employees with access to classified information, including more rigorous interviews, financial scrutiny, and psychological evaluations. Continuous monitoring systems were introduced to flag signs of potential espionage, such as unexplained income or unusual travel patterns. Technological upgrades. The Hansen case underscored the importance of safeguarding classified information through advanced encryption, access controls, and cybersecurity measures. Agencies invested in new technologies to track the movement of sensitive documents and detect unauthorized access to classified systems. For long-term impact on counterintelligence. Hansen's betrayal had a profound and lasting influence on how counterintelligence is conducted in the United States, shaping policies and practices for decades to come. A renewed focus on insider threats. The Hansen case served as a wake-up call for the intelligence community, emphasizing the need to address insider threats as a top priority. Agencies began developing comprehensive insider threat programs, combining human intelligence, behavioral analysis, and technology to identify and mitigate risks. Lessons in espionage prevention. Hansen's methods highlighted the importance of understanding the psychological and personal factors that drive individuals to commit espionage. This led to the integration of behavioral science into counterintelligence efforts, helping agencies identify and address vulnerabilities before they could be exploited. Programs were also established to provide support for employees facing personal or financial difficulties, reducing the likelihood of individuals turning to espionage out of desperation or resentment. Global implications. The Hansen case had a ripple effect on intelligence agencies around the world, as other nations examined their own security protocols in light of his actions. The case reinforced the importance of international cooperation in counterintelligence, with agencies sharing best practices and collaborating to address shared threats. 5. The psychological and cultural fallout. Hansen's actions left a psychological scar on the FBI and the broader intelligence community, shaping how they view loyalty, trust, and betrayal. Erosion of trust. The realization that a senior FBI official had been working against the agency for over 2 decades created an atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. Rebuilding trust within the FBI and between agencies required years of effort, commitment to transparency, and accountability. A cautionary tale. Hansen's betrayal became a cautionary tale for intelligence professionals, highlighting the devastating consequences of espionage and the importance of maintaining ethical standards. His actions also underscored the need for constant vigilance, as even the most trusted individuals can pose a threat. Robert Hansen's 2-decade-long espionage career profoundly shaped the U.S. intelligence community, leaving behind a legacy marked by betrayal, reform, and reflection. While his actions caused irreparable damage to national security and the FBI's credibility, they also served as a critical catalyst for change, driving improvements in counterintelligence practices, security protocols, and the cultural mindset of intelligence professionals. The lessons learned from Hansen's betrayal continue to influence intelligence operations today, ensuring that his treachery is not repeated. 1. Lessons in counterintelligence. Hansen's actions exposed significant vulnerabilities within the FBI and the broader intelligence community, prompting a reevaluation of counterintelligence strategies. The importance of insider threat detection. Hansen's ability to operate undetected for over 20 years highlighted the challenges of identifying insider threats within trusted institutions. His case underscored the need for more robust systems to monitor employees' behavior, financial activities, and access to classified information. The FBI and other agencies implemented insider threat programs that combine behavioral analysis, automated monitoring systems, and human intelligence to identify potential risks. This holistic approach aims to detect suspicious activity before it escalates into a full-blown breach. Stronger vetting processes. Hansen's betrayal revealed weaknesses in the FBI's hiring and vetting processes, as well as oversight of employees in sensitive positions. Agencies have since adopted stricter background checks, ongoing financial monitoring, and regular polygraph examinations for personnel with access to classified materials. These measures aim to identify vulnerabilities, such as financial stress or personal grievances, that could make individuals susceptible to recruitment by foreign intelligence agencies. Need for constant vigilance. The Hansen case emphasized that even the most trusted individuals can pose a threat to national security. This realization has fostered a culture of vigilance within intelligence agencies, with an increased focus on accountability and transparency. Regular audits of classified information and access logs have become standard practice, ensuring that any unauthorized activity is quickly identified and addressed. 2. Cultural and organizational reforms. Beyond procedural changes, Hansen's betrayal prompted a cultural shift within the FBI and other intelligence agencies, emphasizing the importance of trust, accountability, and ethical conduct. Fostering a culture of accountability. The Hansen case exposed a lack of accountability within the FBI, where senior officials with significant authority operated with minimal oversight. In response, the agency introduced measures to ensure that employees in sensitive positions are subject to regular reviews and audits. These changes aim to strike a balance between empowering employees to carry out their duties and maintaining rigorous checks to prevent abuse of power. Addressing employee well-being. Hansen's motivations included financial stress and personal dissatisfaction, which were overlooked by his colleagues and superiors. In response, the FBI and other agencies have established programs to support employees' mental health and financial stability. Counseling services, financial planning resources, and anonymous reporting systems allow employees to address personal challenges without fear of stigma or career repercussions. Rebuilding trust. Hansen's actions left a psychological scar on the FBI, creating an atmosphere of suspicion that took years to heal. To rebuild trust, the agency prioritized open communication and transparency, encouraging employees to report concerns about suspicious behavior without fear of retaliation. Training programs now emphasize the importance of ethical conduct, loyalty, and the collective responsibility of safeguarding national security. 3. Technological advancements in security. The Hansen case underscored the need for advanced technological solutions to protect classified information and monitor employee activities. Improved cybersecurity measures. Hansen exploited outdated security systems to access and leak classified information. In response, the FBI and other agencies have invested heavily in cybersecurity technologies to safeguard sensitive data. Encrypted communication channels, biometric access controls, and automated monitoring systems now play a central role in protecting classified systems from unauthorized access. Tracking and auditing tools. To prevent unauthorized access to classified materials, intelligence agencies have implemented systems that track who accesses specific files, when, and for what purpose. These systems generate alerts for unusual activity, such as repeated access to sensitive files outside normal working hours. Regular audits of these logs ensure that any suspicious patterns are investigated promptly. Artificial intelligence and behavioral analytics. Advances in artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning have enabled agencies to analyze large volumes of data to detect potential insider threats. These systems identify behavioral anomalies, such as sudden changes in spending habits or unusual communication patterns, which may indicate espionage. By integrating AI-driven tools with human intelligence, agencies can respond more effectively to emerging threats. 4. Lessons in espionage prevention. Hansen's case remains a powerful example of the dangers posed by insider threats and the measures needed to mitigate them. Understanding motivations. Hansen's espionage was driven by a combination of greed, arrogance, and personal dissatisfaction. Understanding these motivations is critical for preventing similar breaches. Intelligence agencies now conduct regular assessments of employee morale, engagement, and satisfaction to identify and address potential vulnerabilities. The role of training and education. In the wake of Hansen's betrayal, the FBI introduced mandatory training programs on counterintelligence, ethical conduct, and the consequences of espionage. These programs emphasize the methods used by foreign intelligence agencies to recruit insiders and teach employees how to recognize and resist recruitment attempts. International cooperation. The Hansen case highlighted the importance of collaboration between intelligence agencies, both domestically and internationally. The FBI now works closely with allies to share best practices, coordinate investigations, and address shared threats. 5. Hansen's legacy as a cautionary tale. While the damage caused by Hansen's betrayal cannot be undone, his case serves as a sobering reminder of the stakes involved in protecting national security. A symbol of betrayal. Hansen's actions represent one of the darkest chapters in FBI history, but they also serve as a powerful motivator for continuous improvement. His case is frequently cited in training programs as an example of the devastating impact of insider threats.